Hi everyone, this is Dan, and this is Uncanny X-Men Omnibus Volume 2, with Chris Claremont, John Byrne, Dave Cockrum, and a whole bunch of other people. So the first video I ever did on my channel was Uncanny X-Men Omnibus Volume 1. And I took a while and went through a bunch of other, both new comics, old comics, manga, before I wanted to go kind of circle back to Uncanny X-Men. And yeah, so pretty quick review here. It's good, go buy it. There's a link down below. Yeah, I don't think that would have come as a surprise for anybody who's been watching these videos. But the obviously the big attractor to this particular volume is what's pretty much advertised right here, the Dark Phoenix Saga. But let's just kind of jump into this right here. Obviously a lot of history and pretty much a big chunk of the best era of X-Men. So issues 132 and 134, which is where this starts at, effectively is the Hellfire Club saga. The Hellfire Club is a pretty interesting concept that Chris Claremont came up with. It's basically a bunch of guys dressed up as revolutionary or in revolutionary garb, and kind of interesting. They got a lot of ladies in their club, effectively dressed up very scantily, and kind of makes me question where the idea of the Hellfire Club came from. I'm thinking Chris Claremont had was probably doing some fun and interesting stuff on the side. This is an iconic illustration, by the way, of Wolverine getting his shit wrecked and telling the guys who just wrecked his shit that I'm gonna probably return the favor real quick here, and he does in the next issue in 133. So we go through the Hellfire Club. We got a lot of plot twists here and there. This leads into effectively Sebastian Shaw being the primary leader of the Hellfire Club, leads into the Dark Phoenix Saga. And issues 135 through 138 are effectively the conclusion of this character, the Phoenix, and the Dark Phoenix Saga. So a lot of people probably wonder, oh, what made the cartoon, the X-Men Animated Series, doesn't do a really good job of kind of showing why the Dark Phoenix is a big problem and a deal. The comic does it very, very well, and it does it very, very well, effectively right here. So yeah, Jean Grey as the Dark Phoenix basically eats a star, basically doing her best female Galactus impression, and everyone in the solar system gets wiped out. And from that, it creates the central conflict that leads to the end of the Dark Phoenix, or to the end of the character Phoenix, which is Lilandra of the Shi'ar Empire now needing to do something, as this is basically a galactic or universal threat to everybody living. And, obviously the X-Men, this is their friend, Jean Grey, so they're going to fight over this. A very famous and also very controversial saga. The character Jean Grey had been in the X-Men, since the very beginning as Marvel Girl. So, effectively, for those who haven't watched it, either the terrible movies, the awesome animated series, or read these comics, you should get this, by the way. The story is great. Dark Phoenix dies, and Jean Grey dies. And as a result, it causes a huge change in the trajectory of the X-Men storyline in the X-Men universe. Also caused a lot of flack coming back at people, as people who love this character, Marvel Girl, were not particularly happy about it. But, at the time that this was running, it kind of created a lot of excitement too, because you didn't know who was going to die. They killed like one of the founding members of the X-Men, and that was kind of a rare thing in comics at that time. So yeah, after let's see, 138. So after the Phoenix Saga, we actually go into an X-Men Annual in this particular omnibus. This one being a really interesting and fun Doctor Strange kind of team up. It really centers around this character, Kurt Wagner, the Nightcrawler. And it's a really, really cool story. It's pretty crazy. Uh, let's go back. Like, remember that one time the Uncanny X-Men got sent to hell? Yeah, yeah. You should probably read this annual. It's pretty awesome. And then we go into the sort of the real. I mean, this character was introduced, previously, but this is sort of the first real introduction or issue, kind of dedicated to Kitty Pryde. Who has like a million freaking code names: Ariel, Sprite, Shadowcat, and a bunch of other things. I don't know why they always changed her name or code name all the time. But yeah, you get a little more into it, but it kind of gets cut pretty short because you jump into Wolverine going back to Canada, and in this case the Wendigo storyline, which is actually really, really cool. This goes through X-Men issue 140. This is actually a really, really cool storyline right here. Let's see, where do we go next? Man, we go everywhere in this thing. Yeah, okay. This is where it gets super awesome. This is one of my favorite storylines in the X-Men, which is Days of Future Past, which is completely butchered in the movies. Yeah, I really hate the X-Men. Well, I don't hate all the X-Men movies. I guess I feel disappointed by a lot of them. This movie in particular is the one I hate the most, which is funny because a lot of people always seem to like this movie, and I don't know why, because if you read the comics, the movies, like, literally doesn't take anything from the comics. But, we're neither here nor there. This is another iconic illustration. Freaking amazing. So, yeah, Days of Future Past, effectively, we're in the future, a dystopian nightmare. The X-Men have lost, all the heroes have lost, and the world is pretty much run by heartless, soulless sentinels. And effectively, we get the introduction of Rachel Summers here. She plays a much bigger role later on in the later 80s X-Men comics, but she sends Kitty Pryde with her telepathic powers back into the past, into her younger self, which is being introduced right here. And she sends them back to effectively warn them that, the future is fucked, and we need to do something now or we're not going to be able to save it. So this concept is, I don't believe it was particularly new in this particular storyline among like comics or books or anything, but the execution of it by Chris Claremont is so fascinating and interesting that you just, oh man, it's just great. Anyhow, I'm gonna jump over. I don't want to spoil all this stuff because this is definitely stuff worth reading, worth watching. Worth reading and getting for yourself right here. But effectively, yeah, they have to fight the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants with Mystique basically leading an effort to assassinate the Senator, blah, blah, blah. That pretty much is similar to the movies, but the rest of it is a total waste. Oh, man, this is, man, old X-Men was awesome. Then we lead into a really interesting single issue story, which is Demon. And this story is freaking dope. So this was done in 1980. And this story right here is really freaking cool. Really helps develop Kitty Pryde too as a character. And at the same time is clearly influenced by the movie Alien, which came out a year before. But it's sort of Chris Claremont's own take on the concept. And it's really, really cool. Definitely love it. And it's definitely one of the perks of getting an omnibus like this is you get all these stories that you would sort of ignore just because you're always like, oh, well, this issue is worth more than this issue, blah. No. The greatest part about the Uncanny X-Men and the old X-Men of the 80s, late 70s, really, really early 90s, is that every issue has great value because of the way Chris Claremont writes them. You get, everything is solid. Every book holds its own weight and holds its own story, fairly self-contained. There's rarely ever where you have to like buy 8 freaking issues to really get the story, or in the case of House of X or Powers of X, you buy 16 issues and you still don't get a story. Yeah, I went there. Fuck that series. We get into another single issue, and this one right here, Even in Death, is It's actually, so it brings Man-Thing back into the story, but it really is actually a character study of Cyclops, and a great story of Cyclops too, as we kind of explore what happened to him after the death of Phoenix. Really good story right there. All these issues just have so much stuff. Then we get into a really cool 3-issue series where we have Doctor Doom and later on Arcade teaming up to take out the X-Men. And really cool stuff. And then an introduction of Rogue Storm. And then the return of Polaris, Iceman, and Havoc coming back to help the X-Men. Pretty freaking awesome. Then we have sort of a side story over here, Cry Mutant. This one kind of feels almost like a jump around issue where he kind of goes and recaps what's going on with every single X-Men or part of the mutant team. But I think the really cool one here is the first appearance of Morlock, or of Caliban of the Morlocks. Really, really cool in that regard. These characters are pretty much, the Morlocks themselves would be staples in the 80s. It would be pretty great. Yeah. Y'all know how I feel about Magneto. He's awesome. Then we get a really cool storyline with Magneto. Basically holding the whole world hostage. The X-Men are trying to stop him. And Kitty Pryde in her continually changing costumes. This is also kind of worth buying, this omnibus. You get Avengers Annual number 10, which is the first appearance of Rogue, in addition to the end of Miss Marvel and her original power set. Yeah, by the way, this is like, your boy Zach already made a video about this particular issue. This story is amazing, and it honestly almost, like, it makes you really like Miss Marvel a lot, which I think Chris Claremont always had a soft spot for Miss Marvel. Not the Captain Marvel that we have jammed down our throats nowadays, but the original character. Great story. Freaking awesome. Oh, man, this is this is really freaking cool. This is how Scarlet Witch should be. Then you get the conclusion of the Magneto storyline right here, and we go on into we get another, what's the next one up here? I think it was, yeah. Oh yeah, we get another X-Men Annual. This time they team up with the Fantastic Four. Really cool storyline and a callback to previous X-Men issues. And then what's really, really cool, or what I really like, is this one right here, Marvel Fanfare. So you don't really hear a lot about this, but these 4 issues here, which just involves the X-Men and Spider-Man going to the Savage Lands, is freaking awesome. It's a really, really cool self-contained storyline. The art's also really, really good. I really like the art here by Michael Golden. More so than the Avengers Annual, though the Avengers Annual is really good art from him as well. Oh man, this is some cool stuff. So after you get through Marvel Fanfare, you get a couple more issues of the X-Men, and you get effectively what is a storyline of Kitty Pryde going to basically being forced by her parents to go to a different university other than Professor X's school. Turns out that school's run by the White Queen, and then Storm gets has a little mind swap with the White Queen, and we get some pretty cool fight scenes afterwards. It's a really fun story, and it's kind of a great interplay between the X-Men and the Hellfire Club again. And then, of course, you get, after all this craziness and dark stuff and all these storylines, you get this issue, 153, which is really, really cool because it's effectively a little side plot of Kitty Pryde kind of making her own fairy tale and telling it to a very young Magique, Ileana, before she became Magique. Really, really cool story. Also, I think this is the first introduction of Lockheed the Dragon. Very cool stuff. And then you get, so at the end of these, you get these Marvel Treasury Edition stories. And they're really cool because they're really short, like 5-6 page stories. But they're honestly really cool. Like, I really like this Wolverine and Hercules one. It's a really fun short story. And then to round it out, you get a bunch of extra, like, behind-the-scenes, original pencils and inks. And the big one right here at the end is, Phoenix, the Untold Story. Really cool. It has, like, an extra 5 or 6 pages that they never published, which is the end of the saga of Phoenix. Very interesting. I kind of see why they didn't publish it, because it didn't feel like it met up with what they wanted to do with the rest of the story. Mainly because Jean Grey doesn't technically die if you read the end of this thing, which is kind of weird. Yeah, man, this is so great. A lot of these stories. I love this. This art right here is amazing. Just the perspective and the detail. Like, I wish they would have colored this. It would have been freaking amazing, man. Yeah. Anyhow, I'm going to stop gushing about this damn thing. But yeah, I think you can pick this up potentially for less in other places. Fortunately, the Amazon link, it's not cheap. But if you probably went on eBay, you could find it even cheaper. But yeah, if you like the first Omnibus, no question, go buy this one because it's totally worth it. And you'll probably save a ton of money over trying to collect all these things individually, unless they're the True Believers reprints, which would totally be worth it. But anyhow, I'm going to end this right here. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up, hit the subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications. If you have any comments on X-Men Omnibus Volume 2, leave it down below, and I will see you next time.